Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Week 3. This week's top scorer, Pulp 1.0's Serenity Now, takes down Aaron's Pickin' So Bad It Hurts, 156.9 to 107.4. Heck of a week this week for Pope, as you had 9 of 11 starters score in double digits, led by 31 points from Hollywood Brown, 28.9 from Mark Andrews, 23.6 from James Robinson, and 22.7 from CeeDee Lamb. Only non-double-digit scoring players were your kicker and your defense. You had the optimal lineup in, as the two double-digit scorers on your bench were both lower scorers than their starters at their respective positions. For Aaron, you were unable to get the late scratch Jakobi Meyers out of your lineup. His 0 would have been nicely replaced by Chris Olave's breakout game, where he put up 26.7 points on your bench. In terms of your starters, you got 27.6 from Jalen Hurts, 24.7 from Russell Gage, and 15.2 from Breece Hall. Even with Olave's 26, you still wouldn't have caught Pope 1.0. Besides the inactive Myers, Rashad Bateman scored just 5.9, and DeAndre Swift scored only 7.6 prior to his injury that now has him out for what looks like a couple of weeks. In Week 3's biggest blowout, my car smells like the pits over Chris's two-man and a defense, 144.5 to 73.9, a 70.6 point margin of victory. I had a pair of 22-point games from Philly's defense and Saquon Barkley, along with 19.8 from Derek Carr and 17.9 from Travis Kelce. The rest of the squad all put up double-digit games, with the exception of Gabe Davis and my flex, who only put up 6.7. I could have swapped him out for Melvin Gordon's 16.5 points to get the absolute optimal play this week. Didn't matter, though. For Chris, it was a pretty quiet week. You were led by two 13-point games from Devin Duvernay and Najee Harris, and 11.4 from Tua. But no other starter broke 9 points. How can you take out our boy Justin Tucker? Nobody else broke 8. You opted to bench Russell Wilson for Tua in this game, which ended up being the right play, with Tua's 11.4 beating out Russ's 9 points, even with Tua missing a whole quarter while he had a back injury.
Wow, you are blind.
I have no idea how the medical examiner called that not a concussion, but perhaps they too had a concussion. Week 3's closest game was Derek's Chicken Boners sliding past Brandon's blown call, 102.9 to 91, 11.9 point margin of victory. For Derek, you got 17.4 from DK Metcalf, 14.9 from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and a doubler of 13-point games from Kyler Murray and Dalvin Cook. Your best player this week was Ramondre Stevenson, who put up 20.1 points on your bench. Also, Robert Woods put up a 13 points and change, which would have been better than either of the Mikes that you did start, Mike Williams and Mike Thomas. Now, I joked about this because, there's got the two wide receivers and they're both called Mike. And while I was researching Mike Thomas jokes, because I was originally thinking Dave Thomas, but that's the chicken guy, I found out that there actually is a Mike Thomas in the NFL. So there's a Michael Thomas and a Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas is actually the number 4 wide receiver in Cincinnati. He had 1 catch for 5 yards in Week 1 and caught a 2-point conversion. Also, Robert Woods would have outscored him this week as well, since he got a 0.
Yeah, that's the joke.
For Brandon, you got 20.3 points from Nick Chubb, 19.2 from Christian Kirk, and 17 from Patrick Mahomes. Yet another owner who got burned by players getting held out games on Sunday, as you opted to leave Keenan Allen in, who never set foot on the field. That hurts because you could have gotten Marvin Jones Jr. in for him. His 13.3 points would have been enough to get you the win. But if you want to share some blame, you could probably point at the other side of the ball in that same Chargers-Jacksonville game, as the Chargers defense let Jacksonville pretty much whip them every which way possible. Putting up a negative 1.1 points against the Jacksonville defense is pretty crazy. Are they good? I was going to make a joke here about the Bears still sucking, but they're 2-1 too, so I don't even know anymore.
What in the wide world of sports is going on here?
This week's team with the most bench points was Drew's CMC return. Lucky for him, he didn't need him because he was playing Nick. No big deal. Taking down the Tebow Hannes, 115.3 to 79.5. Drew was led by 25.3 from Cordarrelle Patterson, 18.3 from Kirk Cousins, and 16.5 from Christian McCaffrey. 3 other players put up double digits for you. You did have a massive 68.3 points on your bench this week, led by 24.7 from Jamal Williams, 15.3 from Matt Ryan, and 14.5 from Allen Lazard. Matt Ryan wouldn't have been an improvement over Cousins, but both Williams and Lazard would have been an improvement over someone like DJ Chark or Josh Jacobs. Well, Nick, you didn't get to your goal of breaking 100. Maybe it'll be week 4. You were led by a pair of 16-point games from Aaron Rodgers and Deontay Johnson, followed by 13.9 from Juju Smith-Schuster, and a couple of 10-point games from Nick Folk and Cleveland's defense. David Montgomery took a hard jinx from me, complimenting him for being the only capable player in the Bears offense last week, getting himself hurt, and putting up a point and change this week. Darrell Henderson didn't really have much of an excuse other than Cam Akers is just better than he is. Big Al only put up 2.2 points in that train wreck of a game between San Francisco and Denver on Sunday night. It's just a rough week. But I'm sure you'll bounce back next week. You'll probably get a win and beat Derek.
But I promise you one thing, a lot of good will come out of this. You have never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season, and you never see someone push the rest of the team as hard as I will push everybody the rest of the season. And you never see a team play harder than we will the rest of this season. God bless.
From the team with the most bench points to the team with the least. In this matchup, Jason You Suck McBain defeated Trent's Joe Oh yeah, Kool-Aid Man, 140.6 to 114.1. I like that one. I thought that was pretty good. Jason was led by 34.4 points from Devonta Smith, 29.7 from Josh Allen, and 23.1 from Amari Cooper. You also got double-digit games from Jamar Chase and Chase Edmonds. You ran your optimal lineup out this week, getting the only low scorer for you was 5.7 points from Aaron Jones, but the only player on your bench that could have fit into a running back slot was Michael Carter, who scored 5.6 points, a 10th less. And you had about 18.5 points scattered across 4 active players on your bench. Compared to Trent, however, who had just 4.3 points on his bench this week. 3 zeros plus a 0 from an IR player. The only player on the bench that actually scored points this week were Treylon Burks and McCole Hardeman, combining for just 2 catches for 15 yards and 8 rushing yards. In terms of your actual starters, which unsurprisingly were all better than your bench, you got 23 points from Joe Burrow, 20.5 from Tyler Boyd, and 19.5 from A.J. Brown. Also, Tyler Conklin put up 16.4 for you at tight end. In terms of a slower week, Tyreek Hill only put up 5.3 points versus Buffalo's defense, and A.J. Dillon put up 5.8 versus Buffalo's defense. Tough sledding for both of them in games against tough defenses. Also, Trent, another stat that I spotted was Trent, you scored the most points in a loss this week, with your 114 enough to beat all the other losers, but none of the winners.
Thanks, I guess.
In a battle of our out-of-state ownership group, Tom's got a waddle after that deuce, claimed supremacy over Minnesota, defeating Lee's unsolicited Dak picks, 142.7 to 98.2. The Deuce had the highest scoring individual player this week, with Lamar Jackson romping for a 42.4 point day. If he stays healthy, he's going to need an actual dump truck to haul away his guaranteed money from the Ravens this offseason. You also got 21.3 points from future Hall of Famer Romeo Doubs, 18 points from Damian Pierce, and between 12 and 15 points from Stephon Diggs, Jalen Waddle, and Leonard Fournette. Doubs outscored Isaiah McKenzie by 1/10 of a point as your selected flex option, but both of them were better than Diggs and Waddle this week. And the crazy thing is if you took away Lamar's 42.4 points and gave you a 0 at quarterback, you still would have beaten Lee by just over 2 points.
Why did you bring that up? Yeah, all right.
For Lee, you were led by a trio of 14-point games from Devontae Adams, Ezekiel Elliott, and Kansas City's defense. Also putting up double-digit games were Antonio Gibson, Zach Ertz, and Garrett Wilson. Several average games, but no real big hitters this week. Brandon Cooks was your worst game with just 4.2 points, and Carson Wentz didn't help much. You picked him up about a week ago on the waiver wire. This week, he just put up 8.6 points versus Philly's defense. Finally had to scrape the barrel for the last stat. Alex's Quad D beat Pope 2.0's Holy Trinity, 119.7 to 85.7. It was really tough to find something unique about this matchup. Fortunately, Pope 2.0 opted to start Hayden Hurst at tight end this week, whose 1.7 points on 1 catch for 7 yards was the lowest scoring starting tight end.
Those are some stats for your ass.
Alex was led by 25.3 points from Derrick Henry, 16.6 from Tyler Lockett, and a quad box of 13-point games from Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Austin Eckler, and the Dallas defense. Could have seen a slight bump in points by benching Kareem Hunt in favor of Austin Eckler, as he would have put up an extra 9 points in the starting lineup. Alex also knocks off Eric, giving him his first loss of the season, and ensures that the defending champion will not run the table and will not go undefeated. The last 2 remaining undefeated teams are Tom and Jason. For Pope 2.0, it was a rough week as your 2 best games were on the bench, leaving Devin Singletary's 24.1 points and Khalil Herbert's 33.9 points sitting on the sideline. Had you gotten those 2 guys in for Darnell Mooney at flex and Miles Sanders at running back, you would have had enough points to just sneak past Alex by about 5 or 6 points. Your starters were led by Cortland Sutton, 17.7 points, Cooper Kupp, 16.4, the Ravens defense with 14.6, and Justin Herbert with 12.6. A couple of noteworthy fab claims this week, but nothing that anybody really blew a budget out for. I grabbed Trevor Lawrence for $7 over Pope 1.0 and Drew, and the Lions defense went to Trent over Pope 1.0 on a standings tie at $0. Jason grabbing Samaje Perine for $15 uncontested was the most expensive player grabbed this week. In terms of new bets this week, there are two new ones. I made a bet with Ricky over who will finish with the better record in the NFL. I took the Vikings and she took the Bears. Stakes on that one are that the losers buy the winners a 6-pack, so completely pointless. I don't really know why we made it, but that's what she wanted for stakes. So Tom, I guess I'm rooting for the Vikings. Somewhat.
I suddenly feel so dirty.
Now, that other wager, that got a little spicy. Scotty B and I were talking over video games on Thursday night, trying to get a feel for a season bet like we did last year with the two of us betting who could pick more playoff teams. So I suggested that we go the opposite of that and see who can pick the worst teams this year. And we thought it might be a little bit more fun with a couple of extra players in the pool, so we asked Aaron and Nick if they wanted to join. Each owner gets 3 teams and puts a 6-pack on the line, so the winning team will get 3 6-packs. Scoring will be by wherever each team finishes in the NFL draft order for 2023. So the first overall pick gets 1 point, the third pick gets 3 points. I'm sure you get it. Lowest point total wins. Here's what the 4 teams currently look like. The number in parentheses behind them signifies the point in the snake draft where they got drafted. Also, in the current status column, you can see the win total for each owner at the moment. Big shout out to the Texans for gifting the Bears a win this week and giving me an early lead. Appreciate it. That's a wrap for week 3. I will see you next week for the week 4 recap.